chapter 12 in Tanya. And dear friends, in a certain way, you could say that all of these classes, all these chapters of Tanya that we've been learning about, and all these concepts that the Alter Rebbe has been teaching us, it's all for this chapter. This is really, really what we're trying to get to. Because the book is called the Book of the Beinoni. And this is not a book of Jewish mysticism, although you will find lots of Jewish mysticism in this book. But this book is really a spiritual guide for healthy, spiritual Jewish living. And the state of healthy, spiritual Jewish living is called a Beinoni. We all want to be a Beinoni. A Beinoni is our version of doing the best you can. Right? Like, what they say? You can't blame people. They're doing the best they could. Like, people say that, everyone's doing the best they can. So if we want to be honest with ourselves, the Beinoni is our best that we could be. There's a lot of things that are totally beyond us. And if it's beyond us, we have to be honest with ourselves and know that this is beyond us. We also have to know our strengths. We have to know our weaknesses. We have to know our strengths. My grandfather, his name was Rabbi Dubov. He was a very special Jew. First of all, he was a genius of a Jew. The Rebbe said about him that he was a genius. Literally a Jew who to be a genius in Torah, there's a word for it, it's called a Gaon. To be a Gaon in Torah means that you have to know the entire Talmud inside out. You have a mastery over Torah knowledge. He was such a Jew. He was older than the Rebbe. And he ended up working in a yeshiva in Manchester, England. He was first a rabbi in Russia, and then the authorities were on his case. So he escaped Russia and went to Riga, Latvia. And from Riga, Latvia, the previous Rebbe sent him to do work for Chabad in England. And the yeshiva, when he came to Manchester, the yeshiva in Manchester said, we need staff. There's nobody here. Could you stay? And he's like, listen, if this is my calling, I'll stay. Why am I telling you about him, about my great-grandfather? So I'm telling you about him because he once wrote to the Rebbe a letter. And he spoke down about himself. Right? My great-grandfather, Rabbi Dubov, sends this letter. He was in a bad mood, I guess, that day. So he wrote a letter where he described himself not in the best light. So the Rebbe responded to him something so beautiful. So the Rebbe said, there is a prohibition in the Torah against speaking lashon hara, which means gossip. You're not supposed to speak bad about somebody else. And the Rebbe said that mitzvah is about yourself too. You're not supposed to speak negatively about yourself. So the Rebbe said, why are you telling me lashon hara about yourself? And then the Rebbe says that as much as it's important that we are aware of our weaknesses, it's even more important that we are aware of our strengths. Right? We have to know our weaknesses. We also have to know our strengths. And I think that's really what the Beinoni is. The Beinoni is all about giving us clarity and empowering us about know your strengths. Don't give in to your weaknesses. Don't give in to the status quo and say, what could I do? This is who I am. Don't give in to that defeat. The Beinoni, on the one hand, we're going to read about it. We're going to learn about the Beinoni, and it's going to seem like this guy, Beinoni, that's very impressive. That's not me. It's going to seem a little bit difficult, but the Tanya is also going to tell us how easy it is to be a Beinoni. And easy doesn't mean easy, but it means accessible. It means very doable. And it's not only possible, but it's human. It's health. This is the way it's meant to be. The human potential is to be a Beinoni, and to not be a Beinoni is a little bit to deny ourselves the gift of being a human, our very humanity. So the Beinoni is really where it's all at. And so, dear friends, all of you who've survived this long of our Tanya class, which admittedly is not everybody who started learning with us. There's a reason why when I offer the courses, it's only 6 weeks or sometimes 4 weeks, because long-term commitments is very hard to come by these days. But this is our 27th or 28th class. So this is a very big deal that we are still learning. And finally, we've earned our We've earned our right to learn about the Beinoni. So what I want to do is give you a very brief overview of where the Tanya started up until this chapter. And then I want to first describe to you what the Beinoni is, because it's going to take a few chapters to learn about the Beinoni. You know, the Tzadik was one chapter. The Rasha was one chapter, because that's not as relevant here. The Beinoni, this is who we're meant to be. So chapters 12 and 13 is where the Alter Rebbe is going to describe to us what a Beinoni is. 2 chapters for what the Beinoni is. Chapter 15, the Alter is going to explain to us that this is what we should be striving for. This is our goal. A full chapter to explain why the Beinoni is practical, accessible, and relevant for every Jew. And chapters 15, 16, and 17 are going to tell us how to be a Beinoni. What do we have to do to slowly become a Beinoni? So we've got this whole chunk of chapters coming up ahead. So I want to first give you an introduction, because if we're going to jump in and read, it's going to be a little bit confusing. So I first want to give an overview from the beginning of Tanya till where we are right now, and then we're going to discuss the Beinoni. So let's hit it from the beginning. The Tanya began by giving us spiritual anatomy, right? Our inner spiritual anatomy. Every single Jew has 2 souls, a godly, divine soul and an animal soul. These 2 souls are diametric opposites. They're not just different, they are literally polar opposites. The animal soul is very, very animalistic. It's looking for survival. It's looking for self-perpetuation. And it's looking for self-gratification. Whatever can give it those 3 things, survival, perpetuation, and or gratification, it just naturally goes there. I want that. Anything that seems to undermine or threaten survival, perpetuation, or gratification, it runs away from. That's the animal. Very self-obsessed. It's the ego, right? It's the very, very self-centered ego personality that all of us have. That's the animal soul. Then we also have a godly soul. The godly divine soul is totally the opposite. He's not self-obsessed. He's not self-centered. The godly soul is a piece of God, a literal piece of God. And its interests are God's interests. It's holy. It's not at all interested in self-gratification. It's automatically tuned in to spirituality, to holiness, to godliness. And the whole terminology of survival, perpetuation, gratification, it doesn't even know what those words are. It's not even in its vocabulary. 2 souls. Then the Alter Rebbe told us that each of these 2 souls has a whole structure. There's an internal world. There's the internal core of these souls. And then there is the outer world of these souls. The inner core of these souls, of each of these souls, is called 10 soul powers. Every single soul has 10 inner soul powers, which are the inner workings of that soul, right? The hardware or the software of that soul. What's the software of your soul? 3 intellectual soul powers, 7 emotional soul powers. So each soul has a way that it thinks about the world, how it processes information. Right? Cognitive faculties. How do you think? How do you process? How do you personalize information? How do you relate to information? And then it has emotions. How do I relate to the world? How do I feel about things? Do I feel? Each soul has a way it feels. So when something happens, there's the way that our godly soul processes that event, that occurrence. And then there's the way the godly soul will feel about this. And then you have an animal soul. The animal soul is a whole different way of looking and thinking about this. And the animal soul is a whole different way of feeling about it. So, what's a little example? A little example is when there's good food, you smell good food. Let's say you walk into like a wedding, or you walk into some type of event, some Jewish event with kosher food, and all of a sudden you see this, this little table with all these good-looking treats, which don't usually taste too good, but they always look very good, right? Those little finger food, little delicates you could take and eat, and cookies and pieces of cake. And all of a sudden, you feel those neurons firing up, right? Ooh, that looks really good. I want to go get one. That's your animal soul saying, wow, I've just identified something that will make me feel good. Let's go get it, right? That's an animal soul right away processing information, creating an emotional relationship to this situation, and then wanting to act upon it. 3-step process. You have to know about something, you have to feel about something, and then you can go and do it. And at the same time, the animal soul identifies something that it doesn't like. So as soon as it cognitively understands, we don't want this, it has the flight, right? Fight or flight reaction. It instinctively says, let's get away from this. We don't like it. And then it does that. It tries separating itself from the situation. If it threatens survival, if it threatens perpetuation, or if it threatens gratification. What about the godly soul? When you learn Tanya, and Tanya is not at all talking to your animal soul. Maybe certain concepts your animal soul could also appreciate and understand. There are a lot of concepts in Tanya that are outright hard for our ego to stomach. Like even the word God. God is a threat to your ego. Because God means that there's something very, very important, more important than me. And the ego hates hearing those words. What? There's something more important than me? No, it can't be. I'm the most important thing. I don't care about anything else. That's the ego. The ego only likes things if it could do something for me. Oh, you could do something for me? What could you give me? If you could give me enough of something that I take it a value, oh, then I'll make room for you. So the ego doesn't like God, for example. But when you learn Torah and you feel it touching your soul, you feel it resonating with your heart, and your mind is able to understand and appreciate these ideas. And they're not animal soul ideas. They're godly soul ideas. You are experiencing the internal world of your divine soul firing up. Wow, I get this. This is helping me understand. This is helping me relate to God better. This is helping me relate to spirituality better. I'm relating to the Torah better. And now I feel more connected. I feel more love towards God and towards Torah and towards Judaism and towards another Jew. Right? These are the feelings that come from the godly soul. So we have two souls, two personalities, very different personalities, very dynamic personalities. Then the Alter Rebbe tells us each of these souls also has 3 modes of expressing itself. Each of these souls could express themselves in 3 behaviors or 3 interfaces that the soul could manifest itself within a body. That's thought, speech, and action. So if any of your thoughts are interested in something, they could think about it. They could speak about it, and they could do something about it. They could use the hands, they could use fingers, they could use your feet, your whole body. So the soul also lives within a body and acts within a body. It interfaces with the body. And that's part of the process, right? It thinks about something, it feels about something, and then it says, okay, body, I want to live in you and I want to do something with you. I want to move this body to go here and to get that. And I want to actively think about this in your brain because I love thinking about this. It's a good thought. It just gives me pleasure to think about it. And I care about this. I want to obsessively think about it. Or let's talk about it. So each of these souls also have three modes of expression, which in Tanya language and Kabbalah language is called garments. Each soul has three garments. Okay, how are we doing so far? Two souls. There's the internal core of each soul, which is 10 soul powers, emotional and intellectual. And then we have three modes of expressions in the body. Sounds good so far? Rings bells? Okay. But then the Alter Rebbe says, we've got a little problem. Right, Houston, we've got a problem. What's the problem? We've got two souls, but only one body. Which means there's only one body that can express a soul at a given time. The brain can only think about one thing consciously at a time. So which soul gets to think right now? Which soul gets to speak right now? Which soul gets to use your hands right now? So two souls, one body. You know what happens? There's a conflict. Each soul has a life it wants to live. And every single soul has a 24/7 stream of stimuli that it's always trying to feed to the body. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What do we want to do? Constantly. The problem is there's only one body. So there's a battle. These two souls are literally competing with each other, trying to undermine the other and trying to take control over your body. And this is one of the most important principles of the Tanya. You have to recognize we have a battle happening within us. Every single event that happens, there is an immediate struggle. How are we going to react? What are we going to do right now? How are we going to process this event that just happened? What are we going to do about it? The animal soul and the godly soul have very different ways of reacting to every single thing that happens in our lives. So there's a battle. The secret of life is all about knowing how to manage that battle. So, what are the options? The options are you could be a Tzadik, you could be a Rasha, or you could be a Beinoni. Those are your three options of what the battle is going to look like in your life. Let's start with the Tzadik. The Tzadik is the person, a man or a woman, who does absolutely nothing bad, no evil, no weakness. It never gives into weaknesses. The Tzaddik knows no evil. If you want to know what the Tzaddik's battle looks like, victory. It's over. The battle's over. Decisive victory to the divine soul. The animal soul is nowhere to be seen. No evil left in the animal soul. So the tzaddik does no evil. You want to know why? Because it knows no evil. It has no appetite. It has no urge, no temptation, no desire to do anything wrong. So the tzaddik is a very passive individual. There's no struggle in life. It's not about making good choices, bad choices, moral choices, immoral choices, holy choices, unholy choices, right? It's automatic. There's only one choice. There's only one soul in the driver's seat, and there's no competition. That's a tzaddik. So the tzaddik in actuality, in behavior, is perfect because their insides are perfect. That's a tzaddik. What's a Rasha? The Rasha is somebody who does give into their weaknesses. Behaviorally, they lapse. Behaviorally, they fail. You want to know why they fail behaviorally? Because they relate to weakness. They relate to evil. They relate to bad. You know why they sin? Because they relate to sin. That's that. Or in other words, the Rasha is very human, right? A tzaddik doesn't sound very human. You do no evil because you know no evil. Come on, I don't know. You're not my type of person. I can't relate to you. Did you relate to a tzaddik? It's impossible to relate to a tzaddik. Just what's your thought process? A tzaddik's thought process is not human. I don't think we could begin to understand a tzaddik's life. A Rasha is very human. A Rasha has two souls, a godly soul, an animal soul. And guess what's happening? Sometimes the godly soul takes control. Sometimes the animal soul takes control. And when the animal soul takes control, it acts like an animal. And it's very weak. And it makes poor judgment calls. And poor behaviors. That's what happens. So the tzaddik does only good because he has only good. The Rasha does bad because he also has bad inside. So he does it. And then the Tanya tells us there's some space in between. And that space in between is called a Beinoni. Originally, when you hear the word Beinoni, it literally means something in between, like average, mediocre, right? But now that we know what is, who's the Beinoni sandwiched by? The Beinoni, who's he in between? I want to make this into a discussion. What do you think? What is the Beinoni? What space is there between Tzadik and Rasha? It's not a Tzadik, it's not a Rasha. It's somewhere in between. What do you think? What do you identify? What do you think is that in-between space that is a Beinoni, based on the descriptions that I just gave to you? What do you say? Any ideas?
I think there is a lot of space in between.
Oh, what's the space in between?
I think there are a lot of options. I think there is an active battle going on, like all the time. And I think there are a lot of choices we need to make every minute.
Oh, so there's an active battle. So you're saying the Beinoni is dealing with an active battle.
Right.
That sounds good. To have an active battle is to be human, right? We have a godly soul, we have an animal soul, and they're struggling. Okay, so what does the actual life of a Beinoni look like then? So they struggle, and then what? There's a battle, and then what?
And then hopefully godly soul will win and we make a good choice in our thought, speech, and action. But there is no guarantee. But
no guarantee?
No guarantee, because it's an active battle, and we are neither won the battle or lost the battle.
So does the Beinoni ever lapse? Are there ever any?
Based on your previous lectures, Beinoni never lapses.
Oh, do you hear the catch over here, Polina? You're 100% right. Do you guys all hear the catch over here? The Rasha, the moment you lapse even once a year, you're a Rasha. So what does that tell you? What's the Beinoni?
That he's also a tzaddik. That the
but not 1 second. If the Beinoni is perfect, if the Beinoni never ever fails, the Beinoni is always strong, never has a moment of weakness, never sins, never makes a bad moral choice, never gets mad and says, oh, I lost my cool. That was a bad choice. Then how is the Beinoni different than the Tzaddik?
The
Because there is
tzaddik,
no battle, is that.
Because he still has the battle. What do you say, Joel?
the tzaddik never has that choice to make. He always does good because that's all he has what's inside of him
Oh,
is the divine soul. He
See,
never messes up.
there you go. See, the Beinoni, this is a very key distinction over here. If you look at the behaviors of the Beinoni, he's identical to the Tzaddik. Tzaddik never fails, Beinoni never fails. But if you could only look at the inside of the Beinoni, he looks identical to the Rasha. The Rasha has a battle, Beinoni has a battle. The Rasha has a raging animal, the Beinoni has a raging animal. The Rasha relates to weakness, relates to sin, has temptations. The Beinoni also has temptations. The only difference is that the Beinoni is strong. The Beinoni never gives in. The Beinoni never lets the animal soul ever be present in any of the three behaviors, in any of the three garments. Never in thought, never in speech, never in action. That's the Beinoni. The Beinoni is the person who has the struggle, but is never weak. Okay, let's process that. Now, this sounds pretty fantastical. But ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, this is what the Alter Rebbe is asking of us to be. The Alter Rebbe says you could be a Beinoni. I know it sounds out of reach, but this is you. This is a very attainable, practical version of you. Now, being a Beinoni is not something that happens overnight. It's not like we can make a choice. Say, you know what? Yeah, let's be a Beinoni. Tomorrow I'll be a Beinoni. No. To become a Beinoni is a journey. And sometimes there's a journey that the point of the journey is to get to the destination. Sometimes the point of the journey is the journey itself. There's a journey of becoming a Beinoni, learning techniques, building up your inner willpower, the willpower of your godly soul, building up strength, building up health. And slowly, more and more, we are becoming more like a Beinoni. And then maybe one day we'll actually be a Beinoni, and then we can become an even better Beinoni. A Beinoni is the spiritual journey that we are on. And we have to know this. Being weak is not human. It is a rejection or a denial of our humanity when we give into our weaknesses. Animals are weak. Animals have no choice. Animals say, what could I do? My emotions were raging, so I did this. Everything the animal does is out of impulse. That's weak. To be human is to be in control. And the Alter Rebbe says, don't give in to yourself. Don't give in to the weakness. Don't say I can't. You could. We could be strong people. We could be full humans in full control 24/7. Okay, we got to work on it. We gotta grow and do things that promote spiritual health, promote spiritual strength. But it's absolutely human. It's who we could be. It's who we ought to be. It's the best version of us as humans. Okay, any questions on the Beinoni? What do you say? How's that processing? How does that feel?
I have a thought. In one of the parshas where they talk about the different garments that the Kohanim would wear, they would talk about the bells at the bottom of the garment. and in one of the, I think it was Sparks of Hasidus, it talked about like the noise from the bells.
Mhm.
And it's like this noisy existence that we have. And
Oh.
this reminds me of the Beinoni, this, maybe this little struggle to constantly keep that Beinoni front,
Right.
Right.
Right. Life is noisy. Right. For the tzaddik, life is beautiful. It's like a fairy tale. Beautiful life. It always ends well. It always goes well. Rags to riches. Who knows what, right? The Beinoni's life is a constant battle. The Beinoni is always on the battlefield. But the Beinoni has the edge and always keeps up the upper hand. But he doesn't get to win the battle. Only the tzaddik gets to win the battle. But the Beinoni at least is always able to keep the animal soul away from being in active expression. Okay. Now you could say, how is it? Okay. I want to say 2 points, 2 more points, and then we're going to conclude today's class. So we know what a Beinoni looks like. A Beinoni, what he looks like is, on the inside, he just looks just like a Rasha. Or in other words, a Beinoni is the same person as the Rasha. They both struggle, exact same struggles, exact same temptations, exact same choices in life to make. The Rasha is the person who says, I couldn't withstand the challenge, whatever that challenge was. The Beinoni is the guy who says, no, we're sticking through this. But here's my question for you. How sustainable do you think the Beinoni's life is? To never give in to a weakness. It's not the way humans work. Just think about a lot of things in life that even when we make big commitments, and it could be we really, really mean it, the weakness comes in, the weakness sets in. Every young couple, when they stand under the chuppah and they're about to start a new life together, a new husband and wife, and your heart is overflowing with emotion, and you really make this commitment in your mind, I'm going to be the best spouse. And I'm going to give every fiber of my heart and soul and devotion and attention and love to my spouse. And I'm not going to be mean to them, and I'm not going to lose my cool on them, and I'm not going to be careless to them. Who doesn't think that under the chuppah? But as they all say, the honeymoon doesn't last forever. And what starts happening? We start giving into weaknesses, and we start doing things that we later regret. And it doesn't have to be big mistakes, but it's not what we want to be. It's not the spouse we want to be. And the same thing with our children. When you're standing in the delivery room and you hear that first cry of your newborn child, and your heart explodes, and all the love and devotion that is that you're possibly capable of, that you never even knew you have, you feel it for your child. And and you believe, I'm going to give everything I've got to this child. I'm going to give them my love. I'm going to give them my attention, my emotional support, my physical support. I'm going to give them whatever I have so that they can be happy, so that they can be successful, so that they can be a good person. We all want that. We all feel that. But then what happens? We sometimes drop the ball. And nothing bad, but maybe when our kids come home, and I'm talking about myself over here, as a young parent, maybe we're on our phone. We're not giving the kids the attention that they need. We're not being in tune to them. We're not listening to them. We're not listening to their problems. We're not being as present as children need their parents to be. It's giving into a weakness. So if we want to be very honest, humans, right? Well, how does the line go? To is human, right? Humans are weak. Humans aren't perfect. Humans make mistakes. Humans give into their weaknesses. You're telling me you're telling me that the Beinoni somehow is able to keep up day after day, week after week, year after year, this perfect streak? right? How's your Wordle streak doing? Who's still doing Wordle these days? You know what I'm talking about? There are people who are devastated with their right when you lose your Wordle streak. Oh, I actually stopped doing Wordle when I lost my streak. I'm like, all right, forget it. I was like 50 something days and I was really into it, but then okay, forget it. I lost my streak. That's it. You guys know what I'm talking about? Wordle? Did you all do that craze when it came out? Okay. The Beinoni has this ongoing streak. 1 day, 2 days, a week, a month. He doesn't fail. How does the Beinoni do it? So this is very important to note. The Beinoni is not just somebody who we say, you know what? Just bite your tongue. Just knucklehead your way through it. Just don't give in to weakness. Let's be honest. That's not sustainable. So what's the Beinoni's secret? How could he keep up this momentum? And the secret to the Beinoni's self-mastery is one simple word. And that word is inspiration. Okay. Usually we think of inspiration as something that happens sporadically. You go to Israel, you get inspired by the Kotel. Right? No one stays by the Kotel their whole life. And to be honest, you're probably not going to stay that inspired if you go to the Kotel every day. It becomes very casual, right? And saying, right, Yom Kippur is only once a year. We usually tend to think of inspiration like something that happens rarely and sporadically and randomly, and we get to enjoy the benefits of being inspired. Maybe we'll go to a Torah class and it will really hit the spot and we'll be like, oh, I'm inspired today. And then, inspiration comes and goes. The Beinoni, part of being a Beinoni and the way to be a Beinoni is by always being inspired. And always being inspired is not easy. Every day you got to work on it. When we are inspired, that is literally what puts gas in our tank. That's what gives us the inner willpower and strength. I'll give you a little example. Imagine if one morning you wake up early, make a cup of coffee, sit down by the table, and instead of, opening up your phone or reading the paper, you sit and you meditate, or you contemplate. You think a little bit. Think a little bit about your marriage. Think about your spouse. Think about how much you love your spouse, how precious they are to you, how precious you are to them, how much you appreciate this relationship. Just think about it for 5 minutes. And then think about your children for 5 minutes. Think about what your children mean to you. Think about the gift of having children, the gift that God has given you. Think about each child. How are they doing? What are their needs? What can I be doing better for them? Just spend 15 minutes. No phones, just you and your thoughts. Are you going to be a better spouse that day? Are you going to be a better parent that day? Are you going to be giving into weaknesses that day? What do you say? How's that day going to compare to your other casual days of marriage where we just mindlessly go through our days of living, of being married, of parenting? What do you say? Will that day look better? I think it will, right? All we need to do is remind ourselves, get ourselves in the right mindset, inspire ourselves. If we could inspire ourselves and move ourselves, you know what's going to happen? Or all of a sudden, it's going to be at the forefront. We're going to be conscious of it. And we're going to feel the energy to be strong that day. That's not going to be the day where we drop the ball. So the key to the Beinoni is that every single day, the Beinoni is not living a casual life as a Jew. Every single day, the Beinoni gets up in the morning, and the Beinoni knows good and well that there's a big battle today, right? No day is free, right? No day is no battle day. Every day is battle day. Every day is you're gonna schwitz it out. You know what the Beinoni does? It goes on a workout, spiritual workout. You know what a spiritual workout looks like? You gotta inspire yourself. If you build up inspiration, you're on set for a good day. If you're relying on the inspiration from 2 months ago, I've got news from you. I got news. It ain't gonna work. You're gonna give into your weaknesses. So the key to the Beinoni is constant inspiration, an inspired person. So the Beinoni is somebody who has battles within him, but he's always inspired. And it's not cheap inspiration. It's hard work inspiration. It's the internal work of building up your inner resolve. What do I care about? What does God mean to me? What does it mean that I have a soul? What do I want for myself? Now, we'll be learning exactly what that means. Yes, Paulina.
Is there a difference between inspiration you're talking about and intention, kavana, or is it the same thing?
It's not the same thing.
It's not the same.
No.
Okay.
Kavana means intention while we are doing things. Inspiration means that we are dedicating time to actively contemplate and to try to build up emotions within ourselves. And that we should be able to work with those emotions during the day. So if you're fired up, you're fired up. If you're not fired up, ain't got much energy to work with. So we want to fire up that godly soul. We want to get the godly soul very emotionally worked up. That's what it means to be inspired.
So are you going to teach us how to do it properly?
Of course, yeah, that's what we're here for. I'm not, don't worry, the Tanya tells us everything. The Tanya will even tell us the troubleshooting. Let's say things aren't going right. Chapter 27 starts troubleshooting. Soul troubleshooting. And don't worry, this is the whole user's manual here. One more thing. The Beinoni is somebody who never ever lapses. And the Beinoni is somebody who gets there, because they always inspire themselves and re-inspire themselves every single day. It's part of life. Yes, Al?
Yes, along these lines that you're talking about, my feeling is every day when you get up in the morning, you have to think about the kind of person you're going to be that day. And it's not a battle, but it's a choice between good and evil. Every step you take, you could be in a restaurant and subconsciously you walk away with 3 packets of sugar from the restaurant. That's you've done something wrong, really.
Right.
So,
but we're not even talking immoral things.
It's a constant mental debate.
It's 24/7, 100%. I agree with you. It never ever stops. And it's not only about moral and immoral, it's about godly or animalistic. It's a lot more subtle.
Ties in together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, dear friends, I want to leave you with one more note over here. You know, in this morning's class, there was somebody who was very bothered by the word never. Because the definition of a Beinoni is not just that they happened to not sin. They happened to not lapse today. That's not the definition of a Beinoni. The Rasha could also go through 12 months of not sinning. The Beinoni is somebody who will never sin. So how could you say never? How could you say never? So this is what I want to leave you with. The Beinoni is not a person who happened to not sin that day. The Beinoni is the person who, based on his current internal state, will never sin. Which means it could be in a year he will sin. It could be in a year from now he's not going to keep up his Beinoni work and he's going to fall and he's going to become a Rasha. You know why? Because he hasn't kept up the momentum. He hasn't been doing the work. But to be a Beinoni means that at the current moment, sin is impossible. It's not a possibility. Maybe your animal soul desires it, but you would never act upon it. I'll give you a little example. Ready for a little example? Imagine you walk by a bakery, all right? And bakeries are very good that when you walk by them, you get the aroma. It smells really good. So imagine you are walking by and all of a sudden, as soon as that aroma hits you, you're like, you know what? I wasn't planning on walking into a bakery today and buying a pastry, but it smells really good. So all of a sudden you say, I want a pastry. I relate to this. I want it. Okay. And all of a sudden at the front door, I don't think they do this here in Michigan, but in New York, there's the Department of Health has a certificate that has to be hung on the window of every restaurant. And it gives a grade, either A, B, or C. So imagine you see a C in this restaurant. It smells so good, it looks good, but there's a C. The Department of Health put a C grade for this. And you ask somebody passing by, you say, I'm not local, I'm just visiting here from out of town. Why does this bakery have a C? So they say, oh, you don't know, this bakery is notorious, their kitchen is full of mice. And they don't do anything about it. There's mice and rats running around that kitchen. And who knows what's going on over there. There's mice droppings. I've got a question for you. Are you going to go buy a pastry from that bakery? Is it an option to buy a pastry from that building, from that bakery? Would you ever? The way it is right now, would you ever eat a pastry from that bakery? It's not just you're making a choice, I'm not going to do it. It's an impossibility. I don't care how good that smells. I'm not doing it. It smells good. It really was tempting. But I'm sorry, mice droppings, don't get me near that. It's not just that you happened to not eat a pastry. It's not like you said, you know what, I'm in a rush. I really don't need another Danish. I'm not spending money on a Danish. I'm not buying it. That's called making a choice. A Beinoni doesn't make choices. He has so much energy built up in him. It's an impossibility. He can't give him. When we're on a diet, we all know diets lapse, right? If diet didn't fail, it wouldn't be such a big market. It wouldn't be such a multi-million-dollar industry. When you are on a diet, let's say you're on a diet for 2 weeks, for a month. You've never lapsed in a month. Here's my question for you. Could you lapse? Today, even the day that you didn't lapse, is there a possibility that you could have lapsed that day? Oh, that's not a Beinoni. That's a Rasha. The Rasha, even the day that he doesn't lapse, there's a possibility of him lapsing. The Beinoni, to be a Beinoni means it's not even possible. It's not even possible. You wouldn't catch me even doing this by mistake. Getting a pastry from that bakery is not something that I have to control myself from doing right now. I am so not going to go eat mice droppings. I am not, it's impossible. That is the Beinoni. So, dear friends, I'm going to take questions. This is a very big thing, but we didn't learn anything inside today. That's by design. It's important that we understand what the Beinoni is first. Next week, God willing, we'll start learning. We'll start seeing all these ideas come to life in the text. We'll get a better understanding. And it's 8:33. So let's conclude for tonight. This was wonderful. And next week, we'll start learning chapter 12 inside. And let's do some questions and discussions. Shall we do that?
Yeah, Rabbi?
Hey, Joel, yes, go ahead.
All right, from what you're saying, I got to think of myself as a Rasha. I mean, I'd like to become a Beinoni, but I'm not that good yet.
Joel, don't worry.
I don't know if I'll ever
very good company.
I'll ever be.
No, don't say you'll never be.
Okay, but it sounds to me like most human beings are more from the Rasha than the Beinoni, or maybe the Rasha is trying to become a Beinoni.
Exactly. Well, our job is to be on the path of being a Beinoni.
Okay.
We don't have to worry about how good of a Beinoni we are yet. We have to know what the goal, what the Beinoni is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not happening tomorrow. It's a lot of work. But just like with physical health, the goal is not to become a model tomorrow. The goal is to simply become healthy. And every single day that we exercise and every single day that we put in the work to eat healthy and to do healthy, we are being healthy. So there's being a Beinoni, and then there's doing the work of being a Beinoni. trying to become a Beinoni. That's more important. As long as we're putting in the effort, as long as we make conscious choices to elevate our lifestyle. That's the goal.
From what you're saying, a Beinoni, it can't be a Rasha, but a Rasha is trying to be a Beinoni.
So let's put it this way: the Rasha and the Beinoni are the exact same type of person. Every Rasha could be a Beinoni. Every Beinoni was once a Rasha.
Was once a Rasha.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
The Rasha, it's the same person.
Okay.
When you're weak, you're a Rasha. When you're strong, when you have good resolve, you're a Beinoni.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's the same.
Okay. In other words, you're going back and forth.
Ideally, we should only be going in one direction. But yeah, of course, ups and downs happens. So even a Beinoni could sometimes lose traction and all of a sudden have 6 months where they just lost all that energy, and now they're a Rasha.
So
but then they can wake up one day and start becoming a Beinoni again.
If you're if you're a Rasha and you start to become a Beinoni, you can also fall back and become a Rasha again.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Awesome. But when you are a Beinoni, the lifestyle of a Rasha should be an impossibility.
Okay. Okay. So that's your goal. That's your goal. Right. Right.
That's the goal. Yes, Paulina.
So basically, when you were given a more correct, more accurate definition of Beinoni, the point is current internal state. Whoever you are right now, you wouldn't, in that state, you wouldn't lapse. But your current internal state, motivation, inspiration can change, and that's why you can move between different categories.
That's right. That's right. Even a Beinoni could lapse and become a Rasha, but that's right. It's all about the internal state. It's a nuanced idea, right? Yeah, Marshall, go ahead.
So your explanation seems to me a little bit like water. You could either be, you're always water, but sometimes you're ice, and sometimes you're liquid, sometimes you're steam. What you are is what you are at that moment. So if you're ice, you can melt and become ice again. And if you're water, you can freeze. And it's sort of a state of energy with the same component.
Yeah, but again, I want to stress this again. The Beinoni is not somebody who happens to not have lapsed that day. The Beinoni is somebody that has built up enough inner resolve and energy that lapsing is an impossibility, and they can't even imagine themselves ever lapsing. That's the Beinoni.
Since they can become a Rashi, then there is a possibility of lapse always.
But in their mind, they can't be able to relate to it.
Okay.
The Beinoni says, I get the pleasure. I know it smells good. I don't even understand how you could do that. I mean, it's not about somebody else, not me. I cannot even imagine myself ever doing that. But again, that could change. But the internal state has to be absolute. It can't be like a diet where you could see yourself eating a pint of ice cream. I can see myself doing it. I'm controlling myself today, but I can see myself doing it. I relate to the me who used to do it. No, that's not the Beinoni. The Beinoni can't relate to the person who used to sin. I don't even understand how I was ever able to do that. All right, but we have a lot of learning to do. This is just the opening primer, the opening introduction to the world of the Beinoni. But this is us. That's what we have to remember. This is us. This is who we could be, what we have to strive to be. We'll learn about being it. We'll slowly get there. We'll slowly become a little bit less of a Rasha, a little bit more like a Beinoni. And that's the goal of life. To grow, to become better, to become stronger, to become more spiritually healthy. Yes, Paulina.
I want to thank you, and I look forward to studying with you.
Absolutely.
Happy Purim.
Have a wonderful evening. All right. Take care. Goodbye, dear friends. Good evening. Bye-bye.